What's up, guys? It's Snake here, and from the look of that sign, we're about to be entering the Raccoon City Cemetery. So welcome to the second video on Operation Raccoon City, which is the newest installment to the Resident Evil series, and it's definitely shaping up to being a pretty sick game. So I've gotten a bunch of messages so far, or a few messages I should say, asking if Resident Evil fans are going to like this game. So why don't we go ahead and start talking about that today. And first off, we'll be hitting the controls. So the controls I'm going to be giving will start off with me explaining them on the PlayStation controller, and then I'll just go back and reiterate them for the different buttons that are on the Xbox. But to start out, obviously the shoot button is going to be R1, with L1 being aim. R2 is going to be all of your grenades, not just your regular grenades, but the tactical versions too, leaving the L2 button available for switching between your weapons. And I'm sure a lot of you are going, well, why wouldn't they make triangle to switch your weapons? But you really hardly ever switch your weapons. It's definitely a secondary button. It's not one you need right away because you can never have two primary weapons. You have your primary weapon and then your secondary weapon, which is usually a handgun. And even if you find another primary weapon and you're holding your handgun out, you can't switch it out. It'll switch out whatever your primary weapon is with the new primary weapon. So you can only ever have a primary and a secondary at the same time. And so because of that, they threw the weapon change button to L2. And it makes a lot of sense because the triangle button is now taken by your special attack, whatever your special ability is, which you probably are going to be using pretty often once you unlock it. Because at first you don't have any, special attacks to use. But once you get it, you'll be able to use your your special attack, and then it takes a second to sort of reload before you can use it again. Up next, we have the X button, which is going to be your interact button. You use this to pick up things like weapons and medical supplies and intel. And then the square is going to be reloading your button, or reloading your weapon, I should say. The circle button is going to be for your melee attack. So if you're in very close quarters combat, this is going to be what you're wanting to use so you can save your ammo as much as possible, because it's definitely very similar to the old Resident Evils in the sense that weapon or ammo consumption is very fast, and you end up running out quickly. So you need to sort of conserve your bullets, because you'll end up in spots where you're now stuck with just a handgun, and there's no way you can get through the enemies. Up next, obviously, we got the sticks. So the right stick is going to be controlling your point of view, while the left stick controls your movement in the three-dimensional space. And of course, if you press down on the left stick, you're going to run forward, and then simply by adding the X button to it, you can dive. And last but not least, we're going to have the D-pad. And the D-pad is to go through your menu of pickups. So you press right on the D-pad, and you have your grenades. The different types of grenades. So you got your regular grenades, you got your incendiary grenades, and then the stun grenades, which are all controlled by R2. Now if you press left on the D-pad, then you're going to have your sprays, which you use to obviously heal yourself. And it's pretty cool because the way they set it up is if all of you are grouped together, when you use the spray, everybody will get healed. So that's a good idea to keep it and conserve it as much as possible, and use it not just sparingly, but in conjunction with the other teammates. So that way you optimize your health benefits. And then of course the other drop for your health is going to be the herbs, which you can't store, you can only use. So as soon as you see it, you want to pick it up, which is another good way to sort of conserve your sprays. And then last but not least, we have down on the D-pad, which is going to give us our antiviral spray. So from time to time, as you saw me before, you will end up turning into a zombie if you don't use these sprays. And of course, once you turn into a zombie, your other teammates have to put you down, and then of course revive you afterwards. But sometimes it's kind of fun just to turn into a zombie anyway. Definitely something to throw back to the old Resident Evil Outbreak series, which was their original go at trying to have sort of an internet-based multiplayer game. And so that's all the controls. But if you have your Xbox, of course, the right trigger is going to be for shooting, the left trigger for aiming. So therefore, the right bumper would be for your grenades, and the left bumper is to switch your weapons. And then, of course, the triangle, which is going to be your special attack, will actually be the yellow button for you guys. The blue button being the interact button. The green button is going to reload, and then the red button is going to be your melee. So up next we got drops. Obviously I already talked about the different grenades you can pick up. You can pick up herbs and you can pick up the health spray. But you can also go around picking up intel, which you have to collect through all the different levels. And there's only one intel per level, or not, let me rephrase that. There's only one version of each intel that you can find in the levels. So you might have to go through it multiple times if you're playing with other teammates, because they'll sometimes pick up the intel, so you won't be able to get it. But obviously when you go through, you pick up all the intel, you get to unlock things. I'm sure it's going to be like pictures and music and stuff like that, sort of behind the scenes stuff for Resident Evil, which is always a lot of fun. We see that in all their games. And then up next we also have the objective-based intel, or the objective-based pickups. So from time to time you'll be going through levels where you have to pick up things that'll interact with other parts of the level. You know, like the red key card and the blue key card and the yellow key card. And so you have to find all of them together to open up a certain door. I'm sure it's going to get a little bit more Resident Evil-y by making us pick up like parts of masks and shields and things like that. Oh look, there I go, getting infected again. Luckily, well, depending on what level you play at, I'm playing at normal, but luckily in normal you do have a pretty wide variety of pickups to go through, and it's very rare that you run into not being able to cure yourself or not being able to heal yourself. Obviously if you pick professional, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to play through, and you got to be all around better at the game, because there's a lot of different play styles, of course, because of all the different enemies. And I touched on this a little bit in the last video I did, but we'll go through them again. Obviously we can see all the zombies here, which are the main type of bad guy you're going to be dealing with throughout the game. And they can, from time to time, turn into berserker zombies. So they'll just start to turn red all of a sudden, and then they'll mutate and they'll become much faster and stronger, and they'll take a lot more bullets to kill. Oh, we can see here, look, one of our teammates just turned into a zombie, I guess because he didn't have a spray to help himself. But anyway, so yeah, we got the berserker zombies, which act a lot like we do when we turn into zombies. Then there's also going to be the living people you can run into. There's going to be survivors as well as mercenaries, and both of these guys also have a chance to turn into zombies, as well as a chance to start bleeding. Once they bleed, if there are any zombies in the area, the zombies will be attracted to them, so now they'll have to deal with both you and the zombies, making your job a little bit easier. And then last but not least, we are going to have the bioorganic weapons, and there's two tiers for these guys. There's the generic multiple types of bioorganic weapons, things like the hunters or the lickers, you know, the sort of bad guys that you're going to run into multiple versions of them throughout the course of the story, but they're all in essence the same enemy. And then of course the second tier is going to be the high-level G-virus mutations. The Tyrant series, Nemesis would fall into this category. The kind of guys that seem unstoppable, yet unfortunately you're just going to keep running into them from time to time as sort of a boss fight, so to speak. And then last but not least, the last thing we're going to touch on as far as the gameplay is concerned is going to be the environments. And I really feel that the environments make the game, and it makes it a Resident Evil game. This is going to be the part that old Resident Evil fans are really going to like about this, because even though these aren't exactly the same types of maps or levels that you'd be going through in, say, Resident Evil 1 or 2, it still has that same feel. So obviously in the old Resident Evils you have very tight corridors, not a lot of area to walk around with, and so when you do run into the zombies it becomes very problematic, especially since you have so little ammo. So we get the same kind of feel with these maps that you see in Operation Raccoon City, but we do have a little bit more space to negotiate with. But this is sort of handicapped by the fact that the zombie horde, when it's there, is so massive that it takes up a lot of space. And then on top of that, the safe area you now have to share with 3 other people who you can accidentally shoot, sort of in the heat of the moment, so to speak. So it does sort of constrict your movement, and it gives you that sort of scary feel, like you can't step around anywhere, because as soon as you move, bam, something's going to happen. And then there are the coordinated safe areas where you're standing in them. As long as you don't go past a certain point, then zombies won't come out. So you got a little bit of time to regroup and get some more ammo and stuff like that. But all in all, like I said, it's a pretty awesome game, and if you're a Resident Evil fan, you're definitely going to like it. But we'll probably do another video talking about the storyline next. So until then, guys, peace out.